Okay, so let's see the practical application we are going to develop now.
Well, so that we will be able we have a simple calculator, and we are able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide and clear, right?
Okay, so let's continue to develop this application now.
Hi everyone. The lesson is Simple Calculate App Part 3, API Discussions in Android. We'll be using these tools during this lecture. You need to make sure that you complete this prerequisite lesson uh, just before you do this lesson. So make sure to have a look at the description and complete this lesson before this in this series. You'll be learning in this lesson about API discussions related to the Simple Calculate app we have developed in the previous lesson. As usual, it's going to be practical demonstrations. So what have we done up to now, right? So up to now we got an app. In the previous lesson we developed an app to this level so that we will be able we have a simple calculator, and we are able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide and clear, right? So this is what we have developed. Now in this lecture we'll be looking into the API to understand the code in more detail, right? So that especially this lesson is very important for you to become a very specialized mobile application developer, right? So the trick of becoming a specialized application developer is about, one important element of that is to you are able to refer the APIs, and that's how real world developers are working. So this lecture series is teaching you things as if very much similar to how real world developers are doing things, so that you will be able to go and work in the real world as a mobile developer in a very short period of time, right? Okay, now let's look at the API. So the first thing is, when you look here, we got okay, this code is auto generated. So we got the app compact activity, right? So that is a parent class for activities, right? So that's where you get certain methods in this, such as on create. So we'll be doing a separate lesson after this about Android activity life cycle. So where we will talk about this method, right? On create. But let's look into this find view by ID. So find view by ID comes from app compact activity. So we have discussed that in a previous lesson, right? So let's look into this once again. Let's quickly go and search for app compact activity. So how do I say that find view by ID comes from the parent? Because this is a method. So if the method is not declared in this class, as you see it's not declared here, then where is it? Definitely it should come from the parent class. So what's the parent class? App compact activity. So find view by ID comes from the parent class app compact activity. Not only that, but you can also directly search for it directly without going through app compact. You can directly say, you can do a Google search, let's say Android find view by ID, right? Well, you can also put that app compact activity, right? So that, okay, right? So app compact activity. Now, well, because I put app compact activity, it gives me lots of other references as well, but I will be able to search it from here. So if I go to app compact activity, the developer API, right? And then if I search for find view by ID, right? So see, it's there, find view by ID, right? So app compact activity, find view by ID. So it's a public method, right? So if I click on it, okay, so the find view by ID, you have to give the ID. That's what we were giving here. So the ID where we define. So where did we define the ID? If you remember, you just click and you just gave the ID, right? And then that is getting written into the code as the ID over here. So you are given the ID as tx number one, tx number two. Look here, likewise. So when here, so you refer it as r.id, so that's fine. So when you pass the ID, it gives, it returns, t, right? So here t means the relevant resource, right? So So it's written in a generic format, so it's the relevant resource. So in your case it's a text view, so edit text, so that you get returned with the edit text, right? Okay, and then let's look at few more things. Then also when you write a method on a button, say the add method or subtract method, whatever the method, you had to write it in a particular format. So that also we saw. If you Google search for Android button click, you will get it. So Android button click, that's where you get these references. So you get references for Android button, which we discussed in the previous lesson also. So this is the button API, right? And it shows you a couple of ways of writing the button code over here, right? So you say on click and then call them the button method, and then you write it in the standard format, same what we did here. Click on the button, so on click add, so because of that the method should be add, right? And then the view is a standard parameter, right? So it's the only parameter and you can't change it, right? Because if you change it, this won't work, right? So you have to stick to this. Then also this shows you another mechanism. The other mechanism is you can use a on click listener, right? So it says you can declare the click event handler programmatically rather than in an XML layout. Let me explain it to you. This might be necessary if you instantiate the button at runtime, right? So, so, so what this means is, now the way I wrote the button code is from the interface. I set the on click property, which got set here on click, right? It gets updated automatically. So this is how we did it, and then we went to the Java file and wrote it. Now instead of you doing it this way, you can do it using a listener, right? So let me show that to you, right? So for that, let me do a small change now. So let me put another button to show it, like let me copy the clear button, right click, copy, right click and paste. So I got a copy of the clear button, right? So let me put it here and let me right click on this button and clear the constraints. So because I just want to remove it first. Let me call this as, okay, the same clear button, not, I mean the text can be the same, right? Clear, but let's call it as clear 2, right? So let me quickly go into the strings XML, right? So let me go to the editor and let me add btn clear text2, right? I will call it as text2. Let's call it as clear 2, right? And then let's go into the XML. Let's click on this. Let's click on the text, pick a resource, clear text2, right? Okay, clear 2. And then as usual, the constraints. So constrain this to this, and let's put, let's say, a value of 30, and then we'll right click, show baseline, and constrain this to the baseline of this. Awesome. Let's run this to see we should get the extra clear button now. Now for this extra clear button, I'm going to write the event handling code using that second technique. So second technique is using on click listener. So for that, what you do is first we have to use find view by ID and get access to the button and store it. So because of that, I have to give a meaningful name for the button, a meaningful ID. So let me click on this button and let me call it over here. Let's give it as btn clear 2 as a meaningful ID, right? Button clear 2. And then I'll be going to the Java file, and inside the Java file over here inside the on create, what I will do is I will copy this line, right? Because I'm referring to the API, just put it here. Now button, right? So you have to either press control mouse or alter enter. So alter key and the enter at once from the keyboard. Then it imports. See, it imported the relevant package. Look at line number 7 at the top, right? Now, what's the ID of the button? I gave it, right? So it's btn clear 2. Awesome. So once you get access to the button, what you do next in this approach is you will to the button you will add a on click listener. So I will copy this and explain it to you, right? So I copy the code and put it here. So what you are telling here is to the button, now you are programmatically setting the on click listener. On click meaning when the user click on this button. So to the on click listener, you are passing a you have to pass an object. In this case, the theory here is you are passing object of an anonymous inner class. Once again I will repeat, what you are doing is you are passing object of anonymous inner class. So if that sounds little bit strange to you, that means you have not heard of that in Java. So this is not a theory of Android, this is a theory of Java. In Java you got inner classes, then you got anonymous inner classes. So this is how you declare anonymous inner class. So actually speaking, what's happening here is you this code is declaring anonymous inner class extending from or in implementing this class or interface. We can check it from the API and then it overrides this. So let's look what this is. View on click listener. So for that I will be doing a Google search as Android view on click listener. Then I can find what this is, right? Okay, so let's open this. Yes, right? So view on click listener. So if you look at it in Android, so view on click listener is a interface, right? So view dot on click listener, right? It's a interface. So it's android.view.view on click listener. So it's a interface. In that interface, it has a method called on click. So if you recall your Java knowledge, when you got an interface and if it has a method and if you implement this interface, the Java rule is you have to override this method on click. So that is exactly what's happening here. So this is an anonymous inner class created by implementing this view.onClickListener. Because of that, it has to override the method onClick. So that is why inside this block, it's overriding the method onClick. So I know it may be a little bit strange to you if you have not heard of this concept, but listen to this couple of times and also go and read a material about anonymous inner classes in Java, then this will be fine for you, right? So anyhow, now you understand why it has the on click here, because the on click is a method in the interface. So because this anonymous inner class, once again I'm telling you, it's anonymous inner class implementing this view.onClickListener interface, that's why it's overriding this method on click. Awesome. Now you can do whatever you want, right, inside this. So the same code for the regular clear button, that is T1, T2, T3 set text null and T1 request focus null. Now you can put it just here. The code is not significantly different, right? Let's see if we get any errors or stuff like that. Let's compile this, make the project to see. So when you say build make, it's compiling the project, and if there are any errors we would see any errors, right? So let's run this now, right? So let's run and see whether this works, right? So click run. Now I'm focusing on that extra clear button, the clear 2. So let's put some numbers, say 90 and 5. Let's make a division 18. Let's click clear 2, right? Awesome, it works. The clear 2 button works. So the code inside that is not different, but the concept is different to how you wrote for the other button. Now why do we have this concept? That is because it clearly said this might be necessary if you instantiate the button at runtime. When you do advanced programming in Android, you might have to instantiate, like if you have a dynamic interface let's say based on the user activities, you want to display a button, hide a button. That means you can instantiate a button at runtime. In that case, because the button is not in the XML, you can't use this approach of clicking on the XML, I mean on the interface. So why does it say it's why does it say it at runtime? So programmed rather than in XML layout. So when you say XML layout, it's referring to this layout, because this layout is a behind the scene, it's a XML layout. So if you are instantiating button at runtime, then you don't have it in the XML layout. In that case, you can't click and say on click this do this, because the button is not there for you in the XML interface. In that case, this is the approach you will have to use if you got a program tick button, where you have to access the button and say add this on set on click listener method, right? Or there's another case, you need to declare a click behavior in a fragment subclass. So we'll talk about fragments on another lesson, right? So you got to know this very important concept. Okay, let's move forward. So overall, these are the important concepts for you to keep in mind, right? And once again, the on create method on app compact activity. So let's have a look at that app compact activity on create method. Let's search it. Android on create, right? On create on app compact activity, right? So once again, open the app compact activity, right? So and then look for the on create method, right? So if you don't see it here, just do search, right? Control F, on create, right? So it's coming from a parent class, right? So it is in a parent class, that's why you don't see it here, right? Okay, you got it here. Let me see. Yes. Okay, it's a protected method on create. Okay, it's there, right? It's a protected method. It's not a public method, it's a protected method, because this is being accessed or overridden by the child classes. For example, main activity is a child class of app compact activity. So the main activity can access the on create method. So it's a protected method, it's over here, right? And the parameter for the on create is a bundle. That is why there's a bundle here. Now what is bundle? We'll talk about that when we talk about the life cycle methods. We'll talk about the bundle, right? But for now, you know that the on create in the API, the parameter declared is bundle. That is why now you know, that is why you see here on create bundle. Okay, right? So and then you call super.onCreate because you are calling the parent class on create, it's so on and so forth, right? Now you are learning, you are making a lot of things clear, right, with these API discussions. So as we said earlier, it's very important for you to know about referring the API if you want to become a excellent mobile application developer, right? Okay, so with that, we came into the conclusion of this section. So we did the practical demonstration in terms of referring the API and the developer docs. Conclusion, you completed a very rich API discussion, and you can find the link to download the source code in the description section, right? As references, we use Android developer docs and API. And what's next? Have a look at our other videos for practicals on Android, right? And we are very excited to see you in another rich lesson about making you a very successful, excellent Android application developer. See you in our next lesson.